In this video, I explain a summary of Grasshopper interface and anatomy. When you open up the Grasshopper canvas, you'll see a series of menus like standard menu and menus representing the different palettes and the canvas menu, which I will introduce them in a few minutes in this tutorial. For those who haven't ever used Grasshopper, I can just tell them that they can call Grasshopper by clicking on the screen icon in Rhino, or just simply keying Grasshopper in the command bar, and then they will get this window. All along the standard menu, you can see drop-down lists like File, Edit, View, Display. Under File, you can go to the Preferences and actually set your own preferred Grasshopper settings. What I usually emphasize is that you can go under Files and make sure that you have enabled autosave to make sure that you're not missing any of the scripted models. Now let's get started with the palettes. In each palette, you have a series of objects, Grasshopper objects listed along in drop-down lists. You have different palettes, parameters, maps, sets, vectors, curves, surfaces, mesh, intersect, transform, and display. Whoever is using Grasshopper for the first time will have the palettes from parameters all the way to the display. The rest of the plugins that now I have here are those kind of plugins that are added to Grasshopper by simply downloading them from Food for Rhino or from the website of their developers. So you can actually keep adding other Grasshopper tools to your palette ribbons. The first palette that we'll get started to learn about is the parameters, where geometries and primitive input values and some of the mostly commonly used parameters are all listed. But before getting to that, I also want to point out to the features of the canvas. This white space here that you have for scripting is called the Grasshopper canvas. Grasshopper canvas will give you the opportunity to visually script the model that you want to create. And there is a left to right logic for scripting. So the flow of the work will be represented from left to right, and different objects will be wired together. We'll talk about the wiring logic in this video as well. Grasshopper and Rhino communicate with each other. That means that if you, for example, create a circle and script a circle, you can actually see the result of that script directly on your Rhino viewport. But that doesn't mean that preview let you actually select an actual model in the Rhino environment. So whatever is scripted here in Grasshopper can be previewed here, but you cannot select any of the created geometries in Rhino environment unless you bake it. We'll talk about baking also in this tutorial. So remember that Grasshopper and Rhino communicate with each other. Also, it is possible to transfer some information from Rhino to Grasshopper. So for example, you can draw some points in in Rhino, and then you can transfer the information of the coordinates of these points to Grasshopper. One way is to just like double clicking on canvas and calling for example, a point object. And then when you right click on that point object, you can say set one point. When you click set one point, then you can select that point, or you can, let me just redo it here. So you want to draw a point here in Rhino. So this is the point. This is one other point. This is one other point. This is one other point. And for example, you call a point object in Grasshopper, and you right click on that and say set one point, and you click on, you select one of the points, and then the same point that you created here, all the information will be transferred to the Grasshopper component. You can also assign multiple points to a point object in Grasshopper by clicking so set multiple points and select 3 points and then hitting enter. Then 3 points, as you see here, will be linked to Grasshopper. When you hover your mouse over the Grasshopper component, you will see it says 3 referenced points are all set. As I told you, you can not select any geometry scripted here in Grasshopper in Rhino unless you bake it. So one of the ways that you can create a selectable and, let's say, tangible model of your geometry is to right click on the Grasshopper component that you want to transfer its data to Rhino and click on bake. When you say bake, a window will pop up asking you for the attributes of the baked geometry, and you can select the layer in which you want to put the object, the colors, and whatever. I go with the default, and then I hit OK. So here you see, now I can select a circle with a radius of 10. What is important here now is that if I change the script, the input parameter of that circle in my script, then that circle in Rhino that is baked won't change. So that means when you bake a geometry in Grasshopper, you will actually cut that link between the Grasshopper and Rhino communication. So Rhino doesn't communicate with Grasshopper on that particular geometry. If you change the circle radius, then you can just preview a new circle there, which is still not possible to select it. Since Grasshopper and Rhino communicate with each other, Grasshopper follows the same unit as Rhino. So, for example, here in Rhino, if I want to see what is the unit, I can just go here over the unit bar and right click on that and say unit settings. And there I can select the appropriate unit for my model, meter, centimeter, feet, inches, whatever. And also I can set the tolerance. Whatever unit and tolerance the Rhino has, Grasshopper will follow that. Make sure that you define the unit and the tolerance of your model at the very beginning of your modeling practice, even before opening up Grasshopper. Don't try to change the units in the middle of the way of your scripting, because in many cases you will mess up with the rest of your scripting and your analysis. So select a meaningful unit based on what you want to model. For example, if you want to model a truss system, select inches. Selecting inches or centimeter really doesn't make sense. Maybe you should go with feet or meters. Now that you know that Grasshopper and Rhino communicate with each other, the next thing that I want to point out is introducing the different objects in Grasshopper. We have two different types of objects in Grasshopper. One group of them are parameters that actually act as input or containers of informations and geometries. Under the parameter palette, you can see many of those kind of parameters. You can, for example, drag and drop points, circles, planes, vectors, whatever onto the canvas. One way to actually call for any of the Grasshopper objects is to just like open up the palettes and drag and drop any kind of object you want onto the canvas. One other way is to double clicking on the canvas and call for that object. For example, I call curves, or I call points, or I call circles. When I key in circles, this search list will pop up showing me all the different components in Grasshopper that let me create a circle. And then if I hover my mouse over that particular component, that object, I can read further information about that component, that how that component will let me draw a circle. So this, for example, just contains a collection of circles. It's just like an input parameter. This object let me create a circle by defining a base plane and radius. For example, this circle let me create a circle defining by a center, normal, and radius. So based on what I want to do, I can select the right component and bring it to the canvas. Usually we go with this kind of double clicking on the canvas, keying in what you're looking for and searching for the right component, because there are literally infinite number of Grasshopper objects nowadays that it's usually hard to navigate them and hunt them along the different palette menus. So you can just simply search for what you're looking for, or you can just simply explore the different palettes and see what are available. Let's get back to the parameters. So along the different objects, we have first the parameters, which usually act as containers of informations. There are a couple of parameters that are used very much in your scripting. The first one is number sliders. Number sliders let you select an input number, and you can give it a minimum and maximum and select what number you want to consider to create your geometry. One way to drop down a slider parameter is just going to the parameter palette, clicking on input, dragging and drop number sliders there. Another way is to giving the minimum and maximum values of the number slider you want in the search bar. So for example, if I'm looking for a number slider between 0 and 20, I will key in 0 less than 20. And then I will get a number slider with integer values from 0 to 20. If I want a decimal, if I want to drop down a number slider with some decimal places, I will key in the right number of decimal places I want to include, and then hit enter. If for any reason you want to change the minimum and maximum intervals or make any other changes to your number slider, you can double click on slider. And then first of all, give it a name. For example, you can say the radius. And then here you can choose what kind of number you're looking for, a floating number, a natural number, even or odd. If you're looking for a floating number, you can actually here determine how many digits you want to have. A 3 is more than, I mean, it's unusual in architectural projects. 2 and 1 are more than enough for our modeling practices. So please make sure that you're dragging and dropping a meaningful number slider into your canvas, and follow the good habit of naming your sliders, because you will create complicated script, and you should be able to remember what was the input value that you dropped on the canvas. So try to practice in a kind of like organized manner. The next parameter that is commonly used when scripting with Grasshopper is the panel. You can drag and drop panels here on the canvas, or another way to call for a panel is double clicking on the canvas and keying in // and hit enter. If you want to give it a if you also include a text in it, you can say / and then wood, for example, and then a panel with a typed word wood will appear onto the canvas. Panels are just like post-its. So you can double click on panels and key whatever you want, from numbers to strings of words. You can actually, similar to number sliders, right click on panels, give it a name. So for example, I can say this is the radius of the circle that I want to create. Also, by panels, not only you can give a single input value to, for example, your circle, but also you can make a list. So if you right click on the panel and select multi-line data, you can create a list. So I can say I want to create 4 circles with a radii of 10, 5, 20, 16. And I double click on the canvas. Now, if I connect it to the circle component, then you will see I will have 4 circles with these radii. When creating a list in the panel, just make sure that you're not adding an invalid input like an enter or space. When I hit enter, after entering these 4 numbers and double clicking on the canvas, then I will have a list of 5 items, and the 5th item is empty because Grasshopper component cannot understand what is enter or what is space. It can just read numbers for this particular component that is looking for a length of radius. So you should make sure that you can clean, and you will delete that, excessive enter, and then you're going to have a list of 4 items. In your lists, all items will be indexed from 0 to something. So if you have 4 items, it will be indexed from 0 to 3. You can also right click on panels and change the font setting, colors, and whatever kind of formatting preferences that you're looking for. There are other parameters like booleans or buttons. Where is that? Boolean toggle that let you create if-then functions by clicking on true or false, or letting you running a simulation. So when you turn it true, the simulation component will turn to be true and will run. And when you turn it false, you can just like disable that simulation component. There are other input parameters like multi-data, multi-dimensional sliders, or others that you can like further explore for your scripting. The second group of objects in Grasshoppers, as you have heard a lot, even in these few minutes, are called components. components are those kind of objects in Grasshopper that run some sort of simulations or do some sort of operations, like mathematic operations, creating a circle, rotation, scaling, some sort of like geometrical operations, or even some analytical operations, for example, calculating the total weight or maximum displacement of structural analysis, or for example, the maximum energy demand in buildings, whatever. So they are not just containers, but they are engines that produce something. You can see all the components listed on other palettes, like mathematics operations or like surface components that, for example, let you create surfaces. Any components that you will have a series of input values and output values. When you hover your mouse over input values, you can read what they are, or if you want to read the full name of input and output values, you can go to the Grasshopper standard menu under display and click on draw full names. So now you can see this is a circle CMR component asking you for center, normal, and radius, and giving you eventually a circle. You can actually also click on draw icon, and instead of the full name of that component, see the graphic representation of that icon. Sometimes this is a good practice because you get used to these graphics and you can easily find them in Grasshopper palettes, but some other designers are more comfortable with just reading the full name of that particular Grasshopper object. Grasshopper components and also objects have a certain color code logic. So if you drag and drop a component or an object onto your canvas, originally they are in orange color. That means that they do not contain any data or they are not operating. But when you assign them a data, then that object or component will turn a light green color. Like this circle, when I connect this radius to it, with, for example, this center point, then it will turn light gray. If you just want to clean up your canvas and don't populate it by too many of the Grasshopper geometries, you can right click on the Grasshopper component and turn off the preview. So you no longer see that the preview of your script in Rhino, and then that particular component whose preview is off will turn to a dark gray color. If you right click on that and actually disable your component, that means that that operation is no longer working. And then the color of that component will turn to a dull gray color. When you select any component or parameter, that component will turn green, and you can see the preview of that object, that Grasshopper object, in green color in Rhino viewport. So that is the color code for the Grasshopper objects. There is one more thing, for example, and that is when you connect something wrong or null to a particular Grasshopper component or parameter, and that connection is invalid. So if I just give a radius of space value then it will turn red, and there is a red dialog box up there. If you hover over that, you can read the error: data conversion failed from text to number. So then you see that there is an error. About the wiring logic, I told you that there is a logic of wiring in Grasshopper scripts from left to right. You can just simply drag your mouse from the first component that you want to connect and draw a wire and connect it to the next object. If you want to disconnect this wire, you can just hold Control and again draw the same wire. It doesn't matter in which direction. You can if this time drag your mouse from the end to the beginning. Also, you can right click on the input parameter that you want to disconnect it from a wire. Right click on that under this menu, choose disconnect, and you can select which item you want to select. So if, for example, here you have multiple points and you want to disconnect just one of them, when you right click on center and click on disconnect, you can choose which one. And when you hover your mouse over any of the points, that will turn in dark gray. And then you can select which one you want it to be disconnected. If you want to connect more than one component to a Grasshopper component, you should make sure that you're holding Shift, because if you first connect this point to this circle and then wants to add this point, when you make the second wire, then the first one will get disconnected automatically. So to connect them both together, you should hold Shift. And now you'll see you actually created two circles. Wires can be displayed in different ways. If you right click on a particular input parameter, you can select which kind of representation of the wire you would like to see. One is like the default, which is a dark a gray color. One is faint. So you can actually try to depopulate your canvas. Sometimes just for better visual understanding of the script, you want to fade some of the wires, and also you can hide some wires to just prevent scattered scripts. But when you hide them, then you will see that there is some kind of like wave signs here showing that this center point is connected to something. If you want to see to which item it is connected, you can go back to the wire display and select default to see that connection properly. So this is all about what you really need to know at the very first step about Grasshopper Interface and anatomy. This is a brief video. If you want to learn about further features of the Grasshopper Interface and anatomy, I invite you to watch two videos recorded separately in two different episodes, each of which has a length of 40 minutes. In those videos, I explain further details about Grasshopper interface features.